Thanks. Yes, I'll be speaking about automated legal services. So this isn't strictly speaking just in litigation. It's surrounding litigation. In fact, most of it is at the start of the process. But it's an example of where I'm seeing the biggest advance in technology at the moment in the legal space. So just as a background to automated legal services, as you know, legal fees are being cut to the point at which low-level work has just become unprofitable, especially for very large law firms with high cost centers. Now, some firms are happy to carry on and provide this as a loss leader in hope that it will bring in larger work. Others are looking to commoditize their information and their knowledge in order to serve this in more cost-effective and actually profitable ways and turn what is a loss area into a profitable area. And there's an increased availability now of low-cost technology. In fact, many of the startups that claim to have cutting-edge technology are just using off-the-shelf technology available to anyone and repackaging it and rebranding it and making it look a little bit more whizzy than it actually is. But this technology is available to all law firms and in-house counsels. And another factor is the point of delivery for legal services has, in many cases, shifted online. And so the expectation is to receive your legal services online as well. So how we define automated legal services. So we see it as information that law firms or the subsidiaries sell without manual input. So for example, this could include online content, data analytics tools, update services, subscription publications. It doesn't include books, marketing materials. There's an awful lot of free legal content given out by law firms as part of their sort of marketing efforts. So we're not we haven't looked at that market. We're actually looking at only paid for marketed. And it doesn't include extranet deals rooms, as we're talking about, matter management. These are all things that Outsell sizes separately in a different market segment because they support the delivery of legal services, whereas we see automated legal services as its own segment. It's also separate from legal process outsourcing, such as Integrion. However, as I'll talk about in a minute, that is a major driver behind automated legal services. So how big is this market? It's absolutely tiny. It's nascent. We've looked through all the law firms that generate revenue. We've only taken revenue that has come from selling automated legal services. We expected it to be a lot bigger, but when we did the sizing, only $123 million globally is actually generated at this stage from automated legal services. However, we expect it to experience hyper growth, and even just in a couple of years' time, that will go up by over $50 million. So, who are the players in automated legal services? Well, the leader is, in terms of revenue, is Allen & Overy with Aosphere, estimated at around $15 million they generate from that. Baker McKenzie have been in this market for a long time. They're in many ways a pioneer in this market. They've been doing it for over 10 years. And their model is they found difficulties in encouraging their fee earners to participate because it wasn't billable by the hour. So they eventually gave those fee earners who participated in their information program a little bit of equity in the subsidiary that they run to service this market. And that seems to be working very well for them. DLA Piper, 10 million. Linklater's another 10 million. And going back up to Alan Overy and Baker McKenzie, one of the main motivators for them was that they wanted their clients, when they started a case, when they get to litigation or before, to already be up to speed with the basics, to know the fundamentals without having to sit them down over several meetings and explain all this to them. So they found that by having these information platforms and charging them for them as well, that by charging for them, that they knew that they were quality. They're more than just the free stuff that you get on blogs and other places, and then they could get straight into the weeds with the litigation and the issues at hand. And Eversheds, Clifford Chance are in the game, Freshfield, Norton Rose, Davis Pollock, and Littler is some of you might have heard of it. It's a US firm. It's quite a small firm. It's a leader in employment law, but it has embraced this model fully, and I expect that their revenue will increase significantly in the next few years. And they've even gone so far now as to add artificial intelligence into their offerings. So they could be one of the first law firms who has a real artificially intelligent law service, legal service, automated legal service. So 5 drivers for automated legal services. The legal process outsourcers, digital natives, increased demands for specialization, accessible technology, and finally, big data, predictive analytics, and artificial intelligence. Although it's very easy to get caught up with the AI thing because it seems futuristic and it captures our imagination. We're still at the starting block. We haven't got anywhere near AI. So I'll talk about AI later on, but I don't think the market should get wrapped up around AI at the moment. So the LPOs, their increased use of technology to do low-level works has really disrupted the market, as you all know. But now they're moving up the value chain to more complex work, and they're increasing their market share. Integrion is a good example. Axiom is another example. If you classify Axiom as LPO, I don't know. But they so they're taking market share away from the other law firms that we were showing, and many law firms. So law firms are responding to this by essentially copying what the LPOs are doing and improving on it and building on that. And it's a little bit of a technology race, I think, at the moment with the LPOs and the law firms, and it will further advance accelerate the adoption of automated legal services. The digital natives and millennial lawyers, they're finding new ways to deliver legal services. You will have seen perhaps that there's several groups around the world called the Legal Hackers Group. There's also similar groups through meetups, and these are young, or not necessarily age isn't necessarily a factor, but these are lawyers who are giving up their free time in the evening to go into a room, talk about law, talk about technology. 10, 15 years ago, that would have been the most boring thing anyone could possibly have suggested you do on a Thursday or Friday night. Now it's exciting, and groups are popping up from Sao Paulo to Copenhagen, Berlin, everywhere. Every time I look, there's another new legal hackers group. Now, this happened outside of law firms. Now, many law firms are actually hosting these events. Skaden, for example, has its own internal legal hackers event. I think they have one a month, and they encourage all the lawyers to come in and just sit down with the coders and the technology people and come up with solutions. And they have fun exercises where they'll give a bit like what we used to do with moots and many years ago, but now instead of doing moots, you're using technology to solve a legal problem, and this culture will drive the convergence of technology and legal services. There's an increased demand for specialization, so it's hyper niche, really, niche at a large scale, and the corporate legal departments have been a big factor in this. The growth of corporate legal departments has made law firms realize that they need to be able to offer very specialized legal advice to win back any work they've lost. But it's not financially viable for them to have a specialist in all these different sectors. So technology is potentially a way to address that gap, and invest in platforms that will deliver legal advice. And then when that legal advice becomes more valuable, then they can hire in the experts and serve them. But initially, their corporate clients, that law firms in many ways are in competition with corporate counsel, and the corporations want them to have specialism. They want access to specialist knowledge in these areas. And it's to mention at this point as well is the latent legal market. Many corporations and consumers will have legal needs but never hire lawyers or never do anything about it. And if they're already paying for a subscription from, let's just say, Clifford Chance, that is offering them very specialized advice on cybersecurity, they can log in, put in their inquiries, get a little bit of information, and then decide, well, actually, this wasn't a small issue anymore, this is actually a bigger issue than I thought, or no, let's forget about that, or I've got my problem solved. At the end of the day, clients are looking for answers to their legal questions. They're not looking for a solicitor or an attorney. They just want those answers. It's later on in the litigation process that they actually need in-person advice. So the technology is very accessible, as I was saying at the start. It starts with creating the database and the content. Once that heavy lifting has been done and it's been put together and organized and categorized, which is a much bigger job. Believe me, I've seen the internal processes in some law firms than you might think, because law firms silo their knowledges in different departments under different people, and getting it all together and getting it all organized, tagged, and everything else is a huge job. But there are vendors out there who are helping just with, for example, document creation, that is now being pointed client-facing, so that the clients put through these information into them, and that feeds into the case management systems. But more advanced systems are being developed by, for example, a company called Neoto Logic, who is really developing their whole business around providing an automated legal service platform for their law firms. And they've worked very much closely with Littler, who I was talking about earlier on. There's also potential here for law firms to provide education via platforms and sell this to their clients. And there's off-the-shelf platforms available to do that as well. So as I was mentioning, next, big data, predictive analytics, and AI. Let's not run before we can walk. First, we need to gather the information. Then we can build the platforms later on once we have those databases. There is a latent market. A recent study by the Legal Services Board, you might have seen, found that only 30% of people with legal problems actually obtain legal advice, albeit that's more the consumer side. There's here a few examples of some companies. I'll go straight down to the one at the bottom, which I find is quite good. Do Not Pay. basically was a student who was fed up with paying his parking tickets. And he realized parking tickets, there's maybe half a dozen, maybe a dozen different defenses to getting off a parking ticket. It's quite restricted. Why not just create an app that just understands natural language, so you can actually talk to it, or you can type it in. It understands what you're probleming, and then it then puts you into one of those categories. He did this as a student, as a bit of an experiment, really. Hugely successful, millions of hits to his site. Some 80,000 people got off their parking tickets in the UK. Stanford University in California then gave him a scholarship to look at this in further detail, and he's out there now studying artificial intelligence and legal services. And well, I look forward to see what Joshua's got next, because he's really working on this area. And you may have seen that Harvard Law School as well is slicing up all their books, all their case books, digitalizing them, and any artificial intelligence in the future is going to be dependent on having the right data behind it. This is where the data potentially will be coming from. They're scanning all those cases, 40 million court decisions. It's the second biggest law library in the world outside of the Library of Congress. So they're going to make that licensable, that data. They're doing a deal with Ravel Law, but the data should be licensable. So thank you very much, and I look forward to taking any questions.
Thank you. As a client, I am always a bottom line person. So whatever automated legal services that you are having, how it is going to help me in terms of reducing my legal cost, number one. And number two, you talk about LPO. Now, documentation these days, when we select a law firm, one of the areas that we look into to reduce the cost, where you are really preparing the documents. If it is in Dubai, although the firm is based in London, I will always go in for this. Or if you have got an office in Bristol, Manchester, or Birmingham, I'll go in for it. So therefore, the question is that as the in-house counsel, do you really feel that any kind of services that can be given by big law firms like Alan Overy or anybody else? And there's a related question is that when you say that some complex questions can be answered, I'm not pretty sure, because from the client side, always there are complexities in any business deal. So if I have got a question, is it possible that I can get in touch with any of the law firms and they have got the services which will satisfy my queries? Just a general impression if you can give in the next 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, in terms of your first question, reducing the legal costs, I dare not touch this mic again. I'll move myself into the mic. When you're looking for those first initial questions that come up, for example, Baker McKenzie's services is quite a lot of it is around tax law. Now, tax law, if you just want to know what is the tax laws around in this country, what are the corresponding visa controls, what are the employment regulations in this country, if you're thinking about opening up a factory there, or you're just at that initial ideation stage where you're kicking the tires as the CEO of the company, or as the general counsel of the company, whose first task is just, what do you think of these ideas? Then this is where the automated legal services comes in to say, well, these countries, the Philippines might look good, but actually when you look at this, that and the other, it doesn't stack up well. And what you need is a reliable database there that provides, that you can trust, that has authority, and in many respects you do get what you pay for. So if you're paying for that, you will have a higher degree of trust, and plus they will have the revenue to maintain it and keep it. Now, if you go to your lawyers to do that in person, they will very quickly build that into a $50,000 or $100,000 advisory project, as opposed to perhaps a $10,000 or $50,000 subscription fee for 24-hour, 365-day access. So in terms of cutting costs, I think that it's a clear cost cutter on that side, and it's also advancing some things that you probably wouldn't do. A CEO might have an idea for something, but think, you know what, I can't afford to get the legal advice on this. It's not really an important thing, and that could have been a gem of an idea that gets wasted, or it could have been a terrible idea that's great that he's filtered it out and he doesn't have to think about that, or she doesn't have to think about that again. So that's where the cost is being saved, and the reliability of quality legal brands is something that you would be paying a premium for as well.